Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming tonight, and I want to thank Tom and Matt for coming here to educate us more about the K-4 and what possibly could be happening in the future. I'm just going to kind of hand it over to Matt, and we'll let Matt run this because it is his program tonight, and maybe save the questions for the end unless Matt states otherwise, okay? So we'll kind of let Matt get all the information out and then go from there, okay? So thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jennifer. Thank you everybody for coming and taking time out of your evening. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank the library too, right off the start. Very nice that they allow this facility to be used by community members that want to share some information. This is the presentation. It's on 4-year-old kindergarten, and there was a recent change on Monday that I'll talk to you a little bit about, and it allowed me to shift the presentation and the topic a little bit in the direction that I definitely wanted to go. First of all, who am I? You know, why am I presenting? So a couple of things about myself. I do believe in the benefits of 4K. You're going to see that there are monetary benefits for the school district and taxpayers. That's coming up later. I do have a background in school financing. I've been a DPI certified science teacher for the last, well, since 1993, and I've always been kind of a nosy person and looked into those issues and understand them pretty well, better than a lot of people, and that's kind of what got me going on this. I will have 2 children in Waterford graded schools next year over at Woodfield. I'll have a kindergartner next year and then a second grader. And then finally, it was one of the school boards, Dan Jensen, I call it the Dan Jensen Facebook Challenge. I basically did not believe that 4K could be cash positive, I'll call it, for the district, and he challenged me. Some of you may have seen that. It's available online if you want to see it. It's at the website I run, which is wgsdmeetings.com. There's a little article called The 4K Showdown where you can read a whole string of emails between Mr. Jensen and I and the school board as I tried to get them to accept, as many people have really over the course of many years, that 4K does not actually cost taxpayers dollars, it actually saves taxpayers dollars. And then, so this was kind of the big revelation on Monday night. Mr. Jensen said, so in actuality, we will make money, and this is a very strange scenario, and I will give that to Matt. We will make money by adding 4K, so you heard that from me. And it's not really an apology, but I'll take that. It's good enough. We're moving in the right direction. The overview, basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about brief history of 4K, beliefs and program models, some logistics, which is really the big thing, I think. As you'll see, it does appear that a majority of the current school board probably now supports implementing 4K. Mr. Jensen stated that he did, and you can watch the whole exchange on, he's the director of the Personnel and Finance Committee, and that's already, you can watch the whole discussion and his comments online if you want. So don't just take it from me. But logistics are really important because if we were to start with a 4K program right away next year, things would definitely have to start moving quickly. If we wait until the following school year, 15-16, then we can take a little bit more relaxed and slow approach on it. We are very, very lucky, though, because Burlington Area School District just approved this literally about a month ago, and it was Tom that brought what they were doing to my attention, and then I kind of jumped on that, and I attended several meetings and talked to their business manager and other people. I also talked to business managers and other local school districts to try to get all my facts and be right on about this. So many thanks to the Burlington Area School District, especially the second half of the presentation, because in a lot of the stuff I have, it's word for word from the information they presented, and a lot of what they took was from the Department of Public Instruction website. So I want to give credit where credit's due. So first of all, as I researched this, it was fun to learn that the Wisconsin State Constitution has talked about educating 4-year-olds since we became a state. Enrollment in 4K actually peaked in the 1920s, and then from a period 1957 to 84, they actually stopped funding 4-year-old kindergarten. My understanding is they focused on kindergarten, 5-year-old kindergarten, and moving that to a full-day type program. But back in 1984, so 30 years ago, funding for 4K was put back into the state funding formula for public education. And in 2009, 80% of the school districts were already doing it. and now this year 94% of school districts in the state of Wisconsin are doing it. So when we think about really what's traditional schooling, I mean, a lot of districts consider 4K very traditional. They've been doing it for 10, 15 years. Historically, it's been very popular and commonplace, and really in just Waterford here, it seems new. Thought this map being bigger, I put it sideways so you can see green is everywhere that 4K is already taking place in our public school districts. There's a couple little white spots in different areas where it's not, but that's kind of a graphical representation of the 94%. Let's look locally though, because this is really important when we talk about being what I call and others call a destination community. Are we a community where when people, and my family is one of these just in the last couple of years, we lived in the Racine area schools, and as my daughter was approaching kindergarten, we knew this was a move we were going to make eventually, and we were able to make it sooner than later. But if we're a destination community, how does that help us? And as families are looking to move west, as many do, will they pick Waterford? Certainly we know our schools are doing very well, but with Burlington and all these other neighboring school districts, if you kind of think that the schools are better out there west, you may not look at some of the finer details. And I can show you that just a single family that would move and decide to go to Burlington because they offer 4K or any of these other districts instead of Waterford is very costly to us, and actually further causes our access to increase as opposed to decrease. These are the only school districts in the 3-county area that do not offer 4K right now, and of course we would be in the middle there in Racine County, but these are the neighboring districts that do not offer 4K. And by the way, this whole presentation will be online just like it is now. I didn't put it on there ahead of time because I did want to meet people and have them come, but at any time this will be there and you can share it with other people. I would ask that you do that. The whole purpose really of this presentation is to get information out there that we learned from Burlington, and let's get the discussion going. I realize not everybody's going to be for 4K, but let's have that discussion then. Let's hear why you're not and let's talk about it. And when I say that, I mean the school district. Hopefully the school district will do that. Go ahead. I'll let you.
Are we doing a discussion now?
Well, not really.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, you probably came a little late. Yeah, we're gonna, but there will be at the end.
That's fine.
Definitely keep questions and answers. So something about school funding basics that I want you to know, and a lot of you already know this. We are a state that up until just a couple of years ago was committed to 2/3 funding. It still funds pretty close to 2/3 of the cost of schools. How does it fund it? Of course, it's a sales tax, it's your income tax, etc. But not all districts get their 2/3. The way the state works, and because every district is supposed to offer a quality and free education, districts that have a better tax base or are considered wealthier, their money is disproportionately put into the districts that are poorer, so to speak. Those are actually the terms that DPI uses, a wealthy district. And so right now, Waterford Graded School District, the costs, we call them shared costs, the costs that the taxpayers, local levy taxpayers, and the state pay to educate our children, the state only pays about 1/3 of it, where on average they pay 2/3. And that's because we are considered a wealthy school district. And that's important coming up. So what is wealth? Well, it's a simple fraction. You take all the value of the property in the community and you divide it by the number of kids. It's a simple numerator, denominator, and then you get wealth. And 10 years ago and such, when there was a lot of building going on, this was a growing community. Enrollment in the school district was growing, and people had hoped and thought that it would continue to grow for a long time, but then the housing bubble burst and the economy slowed down. And we have now, in the last, I think it's 4 years, we are a declining enrollment school district, and our wealth is increasing. I'll get back to that in a second. I call it the death spiral because there's a disproportionate amount of state aid that you lose for every student that you lose or have a declining enrollment. And right now, we know that our enrollment is going to continue to go down for several more years because we have this large bubble in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Those classes are going to be moving off to the Waterford High School, And so the incoming kindergarten grades is based on what we know with birth data and stuff like that are expected to be smaller. And the superintendent has projected that we'll lose about 30 students per year on average. I think that was for the next 4 or 5 years. So there again, just kind of graphical representation. 2 years ago, we were same number of buildings, houses that were part of the tax base. It's called equalized value divided by a certain number of kids. You can see the properties haven't changed, but the number of kids have. We decreased by 1.5% wealth from 11-12 to 2012-13, and then this year we decreased by 2.4%. And our wealth actual amount, it's now $878,000 and some change per student. So if you take, we have about 1,600 students, and you multiply that by that amount, you would know what our equalized tax base is. Some people have asked and commented that, well, wait a minute though, you know, house values in Waterford have gone down, but not as far as everywhere else. And actually I looked into that over the last 5 years anyhow. It was close enough to say they're equal, but actually the equalized value, when I compared it to the equalized value of the entire state, we decreased at a slightly faster rate than other parts of the state. And by the way, there's the Department of Revenue for the state. You know, you get your income taxes and it says what your house is worth, but the state Department of Revenue actually looks at that and equalizes values all around the state. Because we did have a board member say that maybe we need to talk to the local assessor and make sure that these values aren't so high and get them down, and thought that might help it. That they're equalized throughout the state, so it doesn't really matter what the local tax assessor does and how they value your property. In December, Superintendent gave a presentation. This is a very important presentation. He talked about what is the fiscal outlook for the district for the next 5 years. And these numbers come right off the presentation. Again, you can watch the presentation online if you want. But we have a serious problem. His budget presentation said that our $7 million reserve fund that we have right now, in just 5 years, will be minus $1.5 million. Basically bankrupt. You'd think that would have made a lot of headlines in the paper and there'd be continued discussion about it. There hasn't been a whole lot. There was one nice article, but you know, to me, this is a real problem that we all have to address. And of course, it will get addressed, but what it means is my property taxes and your property taxes are going to go up a lot, unless there are a lot of cuts that get made, class sizes increasing. One school board member talked about mothballing one of the buildings and moving students to the other. I mean, I don't know if that was a serious comment or not, but that's what was said. So let's look at why this is happening, though. Why is Waterford not getting as much aid as other school districts? Well, I just went back about 10 years here, and I looked at the state's enrollment. So this is across the entire state of Wisconsin, and the enrollment has declined a little bit, but not a whole lot. From the beginning here, in about 9 or 10 years, enrollment has only gone down about 2%. Now, if we take out all the 4K enrollments that have happened in that period of time, this is how the state's enrollment would have gone down. And you really have to think of this as Waterford is really on this line here, because we haven't added a grade. We haven't added 4-year-old kindergarten. So with respect to all these other school districts, our enrollment is shrinking. And remember that little thing with the house on top and the kids on the bottom? Our kids are shrinking on the bottom, and our wealth is going up, and the state says, whoa, Waterford, you're so much wealthier this year than you were last year. We don't have to give you as much money. And so that's what's happening. Yet, there is no more value in Waterford. The property value is held the same. So what's happened, like it or not, and a lot of people don't like to talk about making money off of kids, but a lot of school districts have determined that whether you think 4K will ultimately help students or not, I mean, some people are still having that debate. I don't think that's really much to debate about here. But nobody can debate that if we start a 4K program here in Waterford Great School District, that when we increase our enrollment with respect to where we would be if we don't start 4K, that we will get a large windfall of money to not only pay for the 4K program, but have a lot left over. And so how much are we talking about? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. In fact, the cost of the 4K program, I use the amount $400,000. That would be assuming we get a maximum involvement in the 4K program. and that's assuming some rounded up costs. The superintendent revealed something like $330,000 cost, and that included an entire extra bus for Whitfield Elementary, because apparently their buses are so jam-packed right now that if we even had 4 or 5 4-year-olds hopping on that bus, that they'd have to add a bus. I don't know that you should really contribute that to the whole 4K program, because the truth is, a couple families move into the district next year, they're going to have to do that anyhow, or move into the Whitfield school area, they'd have to do that anyhow. Then I just show this again, so kind of what I said, relatively speaking, other districts have become less wealthy because they added enrollment to a 4K program. And that's the revelation that Mr. Jensen and others have recently had now, that will happen to us too. We'll become less wealthy, which when we talk about state funding is a good thing. I had done all this research and got numbers and talked with people at the Department of Public Instruction Finance Department because I understood why 4K was going to be really helpful. And I was basically banging on the door of certain school board members and trying to get them to acknowledge this and talk about this. And so, because I would go to meeting after meeting and have them say, first of all, it was free babysitting, and second of all, the taxpayers aren't going to pay for free babysitting, and it's going to make the taxes go up, and they don't want to do it. So, I really went after this, and I talked with the people at the Department of Public Instruction, and they were a little bit hesitant to say that we should do exactly what Burlington and other school districts did, that we call it a cast forward projection, pretend you have all these new students because you started 4K. They said, this is what you need to do. You need to do a past projection model. You need to go back 3, 4, 5 years so you know what the state aid formulas were and you know what the revenue limits were. And then so I did that. I said, okay, here's without 4K. These are real actual numbers. This is it. This is how much we got in state aid. This is how much we as homeowners paid. This is what the total revenue was for the district. And this is how it changed over 5 years. Then I took these same state aid and revenue limit worksheets, very complex worksheets, and I added 72 full-time equivalent students, and you'll see how I get that coming up, and nobody's really debated that number. When I did that, these are the numbers I got. So this table down here summarizes how that changes, and you can see you go in the hole the first year, and I used the $360,000 cost because, of course, 5 years ago, costs were lower, so I'm not using the $400,000 amount. You can see it creeps up every year, gets close to that. But the first year you do go in the hole because state aid is always paid the following year. So this year, Waterford Graded is getting state aid based on the number of kids it had enrolled last year. And next year it'll get money based on the number of kids that are enrolled this year. So what districts like Burlington have done is they just decided to increase the revenue limit and tax for that, knowing that they're going to decrease the revenue limit in future years by more than that. So it's basically the concept of a loan, just like you and I do. You get money from a bank and then you pay it back. Well, we are very lucky because our school board has done a very good job of keeping costs down, and we have right now a $7 million reserve fund. It's like 43% of the annual budget. It's much higher than their own policy requires. It's much higher than the Wisconsin Association of School Boards recommends that school districts have. So we can easily fund this program in the first year. Now remember, I'm back 5 years, but you can also pretend this is for next year. Then in the very second year, there would be a surplus of change in revenue. Well, here's my state aid numbers. Here's my state aid numbers. 8.2 million is what we did get. Had we had 4K, just over 9 million. You pay back the $360,000 from the previous year, $365,000 for the current year, and at the end of the second year, you already have a $53,000 surplus, and you've provided free 4K or 4K for the students of the community. Then the big payoff comes in the third year, surplus of $452,000, and below this is the cumulative running total. Payoff of additional surplus $303,000, $412,000, and without a doubt, nobody can argue that had we started 4K 5 years ago, the district could have provided 4K for all students in Waterford Graded and would have $1.2 million extra in their reserve fund, or could they use that to decrease class sizes, or could have done that to decrease your property taxes with the levy, whatever the school board wants to do. That's not really debatable. This is following the DPI finance director's recommendation. I have a whole email from him that explains exactly how to do this, and I did it, and that's what we get. You have to decide, but my opinion is that that's really unfortunate, and that people that have been making decisions have not done their job in doing this homework here. Other school districts have set up focus groups. I have letters from parents. People have shared with me letters that they have sent to the district. I've been at enough meetings to see people request. We have a board member, Dawn Blymel. She's here tonight to put her on the spot, but she really asked for this information over the summer. It's 7, 8 months later. We still don't have it. I think we're going to move in that direction quickly, but it is very frustrating for me as a parent and a taxpayer and someone that believes in the benefits of 4K. Another way to look at this kind of a graphical representation, and this was cast forward like in the year 2015-16, but if the shared cost to run the district without 4K is $17.4 million, and we add $400,000 to that, it becomes $17.8 million. But look what this does to your taxes. The cost is a little bit less without 4K, the total cost, but the state only gives us $5.5 million, and we taxpayers have to pay $11.9. If we have 4K with a little bit extra cost, we get $6.4 million more from the state, and all we have to levy tax-wise is $11.4. That's $500,000 less levied in a single year. So that's just another way to look at it. I have heard people say that, hey, well, it comes out of one pocket or the other. It's taxation, and I don't like it. And that really isn't true for 4K. The state has a certain amount of money that it is going to spend next year and the following year and the following year. The question is, do we get a small piece of that pie or a bigger piece? But your state income tax, your state sales tax is not going to change at all whether or not Waterford starts a 4K program. All we are going to be doing is taking the sales and income tax money that we currently send to all these other school districts that have 4K and keep it here for ourselves. That's all that's going to change. Nobody can make an argument that it's still our tax dollars and I don't want to start 4K because I don't believe in taxation. It's already happening. If you want to debate what was decided in 1984, that 4-year-old kindergarten is funded by the state, then that's a different argument, and you're going to have a hard time, because anybody you talk to on whatever aisle they're on, nobody's going to stop funding 4K in Wisconsin. So how does one enrollment impact Waterford grades? So one enrollment is one student full-time. And when you look at the state aid worksheet, you just tweak the enrollment number. It's very easy. By one, you see that the aid we get from the state changes by over $12,000. And to educate in a 4K program, like 1.8 students, by the way, because 4K is not a full day, but one full-time equivalent student only costs about $5,600. I mean, that's really, a lot of people, that's hard to believe. What? You get over 12,000, but it only costs $5,600, and that's it. That's how the formulas work. And that's that whole thing about we're becoming wealthier and we're not getting our share of the state dollars. In this, destination community, how do we compare and what can we do to attract families here? Attracting families increases the enrollment and slows or stops this declining enrollment, this death spiral. It doesn't mean that we're not still going to have declining enrollment. It doesn't mean that taxes aren't still going to go up, but they will go up at a much slower rate if you have a 4K program. And just look at this, one family right now, I know there are families that are looking to move out here. They've got somebody starting kindergarten, or they're buying their first home and this is where they want to live. Are they going to pick Burlington? Are they going to pick Waterford? A family with just 2 kids at $12,000 per year in additional revenue from the state. That's $25,000 a year for every year they're here. And if they're looking at communities and we don't offer 4K, and they can get it for free in Burlington or somewhere nearby, it's probably going to be part of their decision-making process. For those families that have children that are kindergarten or later, it may not be. Or for those families like mine that participate in 4K at a local preschool, and there are other reasons that go into that decision, then they're still going to do that, and it may not be as big a deal. But we have to admit that for some families it is, and just one family with 2 kids, it's a pretty significant amount. So 4K could increase enrollment by about 5%, and this is how I figure this out. By the way, nobody's in the, over a month in time that I've been talking with these numbers, nobody's challenged this. But if we have about 160 students starting kindergarten every year on average recently, and we assume that 75% will decide to enroll in 4K, 25% just won't send their children to 4K. They have stay-at-home parents, or they do a different type of daycare or parochial. But if we assume that 75% will enroll, then here's the equation: 160 students times 75% times 0.6 FTE. It's a little bit more than a half-day program. That's how you figure it out. That's how we keep talking about this number: 72 new full-time enrollments in a 4K program. Yeah.
Is that a voluntary program?
It is.
It is,
Yep.
okay.
Good question. That's coming up. It's absolutely voluntary. Burlington says that if you're going to participate, we would like you to take it seriously, and we're going to keep track of attendance, and you're expected to attend. But it is absolutely voluntary. And this is just some numbers for those that are interested. How does this work? Well, a teacher and an aide, about $80,000 times 4 rooms, and then this is again pretty much copied from the Burlington's model. But when you talk about rooms, these rooms could be at an existing preschool, these rooms could be in the school district, doesn't matter. But for the purpose, this is how the costs come down. Even threw in there, because Burlington did it, 50 cents per student for a snack, I guess, every day. Supervision, room setup equipment. Some of this is one time. As you prepare the room and get ready for the program, they built that cost into there. And that's how I get $400,000. So like I said, the superintendent has a lower number. It could be that he was using fewer students or had lower costs on what it would be to have a teacher, etc. I don't know. And then really where I think the debate is going to go now, and it's one of the reasons I felt it was still worth going ahead with this meeting, even though it looked like the school, a majority of the school board members now will be moving towards a 4K program. The question is, do we try to hustle this now and make it happen next year, or do we just slow down and take our time and have it do the following year? I personally think if it's possible, or at least we ought to spend a good 30 days on this and see what can be hammered out and get feedback. I really think we ought to start now to get this implemented next year, because it's $400,000 difference if we wait another year. It's another year without 4K available to all students, and that all word is really important, as you'll see coming up. If it just can't be done, or people don't think it can be done, or not willing to try, or they try and it can't be done, then it just can't be done. That's fine with me. But I think we have to have to double time it. Yes.
Is this strictly a financial decision, basically?
It's not for me, but for the people on the school board that were opposed to it. They didn't believe in the benefits, or their comments were, I need to see the proof. Well, these are very hard things for even researchers to determine in depth for sure. There's a lot of research that says 4K is very successful, very beneficial. Some of you in this room know a lot more about it than me, by all means. And then there are a couple of key studies that showed that early childhood, 3- and 4-year-old schooling benefited students, but then after third grade, some of the benefits were no longer detectable. But those are really, it's a flawed argument if you try to apply that, because those were Head Start programs. Those were not district-wide 4K that have all students enrolled. And so, I know that some people will try to, I think we're past that debate personally, but, and when Mr. Jensen stated that he's now for it, if you know about the leadership he has, and there's other board members that just seem to, Mr. Jensen wants to do it, they'll do it, and then so it seems like it's probably a done deal. But they need to each, I guess, talk about it.
Is there local control over the curriculum, or is
Yes.
it federally type of?
Yeah, there's a little bit of both, but that's coming up. Excellent
Okay.
questions. I think I'm going to get to most of that. One thing that has also been missed over the last many years is that the state has provided a lot of grant money, up to $1,500 per kid per year for 2 years. And Mr. Jensen had talked about that in the email exchange I had, and then things changed a little bit when he talked the other night, but just quoting him from his email here, I just get down to the most important thing here. The average has been $500 to $800 grant money per FTE, so because basically I had said, look, not only did we miss out on all this money, but we missed out on grant money too, because it doesn't look like there's any grant money left, and there's no guarantee that the state legislature is going to renew that. And so I think he tried to downplay that, and his summary was, look, if that's true, we're only missing between $36,000 to $57,000. So that's going to come up again, because people that will not want to do this right away next year, want to wait the following year, they'll say, if we wait another year, there's a chance that the grant will be renewed, and there's a chance that we can then apply for the grant and get accepted and have some additional money. That money, $57,000, is nothing compared to the $400,000 to $500,000 we would get by starting a year earlier. Remember, for every year the program is running, except for the very first year, it's a $400,000 to $500,000 bonus surplus revenue. So that's why I'm not for waiting another year. Well, and I also want all kids to have the benefit of 4K next year, not another year later. DPI information, this is right off the DPI website. By the way, when this is active on my website, you can click on these links and go right to it. But at this time, it is anticipated that no funds will be available for the Cycle 6 Year 1. So Cycle 6 is 13 to 15, so I guess it would be Cycle 7, then that would be 14 to 16 or something like that. I don't. Tom, do you know more about that? You had looked into it too, but.
Pretty much that it's running out, and now we're to the point that so many schools offer it. We're at 94%. The chances of the legislature saying, okay, let's re-up the ante here, what will be the point? There'll only be a couple schools left. Why would they funnel more money into it? I think we kind of missed the boat with that opportunity.
And I have a feeling of the 5% of the districts in the state that don't have 4K, a lot of them may be wealthy districts like us, and if somebody looks into this and the legislature knows that they're going to get a windfall of cash anyhow, why do we need to give them grant money to do this? So that, that's probably another reason why they'll get cut. But we don't know. It may not get cut. But it's small change compared to having the program. So as I get into some of these, how the program works and logistics, again, thanks to Burlington Area School District, they actually took all this down and they had a wonderful website, and then about 2 weeks ago after it got approved, it just disappeared, vanished overnight. Google cached, I could only find one document on there, so luckily I had handouts and I had to type all this stuff in, but got to give credit where credit is due. And so one of the things they found out is that, it's a different community, so I don't know, and so very clear. In Burlington, they found out that 30% of 4-year-olds in their community do not participate in any type of preschool. And I assume that they're going to a daycare. I think that's a type of preschool, and they count that because then their other statistic was that in Burlington, 66% do not attend a preschool, and then I think that's a place that offers a curriculum. So I thought those were pretty interesting statistics. This is a quote that you see everywhere when you talk about this 4K here. Is experts tell us that 90% of all brain development occurs by the age of 5. If we don't begin thinking about education in the early years, our children are at risk of falling behind by the time they start kindergarten. A lot of people provide all that right at their home. Other people get that provided through their preschool and their daycare or in other communities in their 4K district-wide program. I love this, and I don't think we can forget about a lot of the students that currently don't go to daycare, don't go to preschool, and are at home in an environment that is not fostering their growth, socially and mentally. So district-wide program does this. It gives access to every single student. It ensures a common preschool experience, so when they get in the doors for kindergarten, the traditional 5-year-old kindergarten, they're on a much level playing field. And it provides a solid foundation for future school success. So what are the models and how does it work? I want you to focus on Model 1 and 3 because Burlington kind of did away with Model 2, and I think as you hear this, you might agree too. But again, maybe not. Maybe this community will really like Model 2. But Model 1 is that you have a school site with a school district teacher. So we have a lot of vacant classrooms right now because of this declining enrollment. And we can set up 4K at no additional cost. We don't have to build a new building or anything like that. That's a benefit. And then it's a district employee, a district teacher teaching students. Model 2 is where you actually use a different site, preschool, existing preschool maybe, or wherever, a church that has room, but you have a district employee, a certified DPI licensed teacher to teach 4K at that site. And then the third model, which is really the model that Tom and I are most excited about, is it's called the community model. So you have a community site like an existing preschool with a licensed pre-K teacher, but that teacher is employed by the preschool that the student would be attending. So model one, again, I kind of described all this, but 4-year-olds attend. It's a district room and a district employee teacher. Model two is where it's probably for places that don't have room and they don't want to build a new building, so they find a building within the community, but they supply the teacher. And then model three, again, is the one that seems most exciting. 4K is housed at a community site that's at an existing preschool center or child care center. A DPI licensed teacher who's employed then by the child care center or preschool teaches the program. And then each community site enters a contract with the district to offer the 4K programming. Children attend class and then are transported home or remain at the facility for wraparound care if needed. So for parents that are working all day and currently have their child in daycare all day, then they might, if they have the space, decide to in the morning have daycare, then the 4K starts in the afternoon, or flip-flop that. You do it any way you want. And then we can go into this and talk. And again, I'm not the expert on this. Many of you know much more about this than I do. But if you're a preschool and you don't currently have DPI licensed teachers, or you're a daycare, there are ways for you still to participate in this. And I could see, depending on how this was done and what the community's reaction is, some preschools could very well have participation that is beyond what they currently are experiencing. I also don't know what preschools are pay their teachers compared to what the school district will pay. But for those that are currently licensed and would continue to do this, it's possible that their salary benefits could go up. Again, I really have no idea. The blended model is what Burlington decided to go with then, because they have to go around to the existing facilities and there are some requirements. They have to be buildings in good shape and have certain things to offer. But they are offering a blended model, so they're between 1 and 3. So and it's probably because they don't quite know yet. They have to look at who's enrolling, where they want to go, what requests are, but they're going to have some on site. Right now they're planning to have 1 classroom in Burlington, and the others was their proposal that would be community sites, existing preschools. I won't read, I think I've said most of what's on there, but depending on space availability in the community centers and the programming needs of students, some district space may also be utilized, but their focus is these community sites. And if the site is, obviously in our publicly funded schools, they don't allow for religious curriculum, but for those preschools that do offer that, they would have to change that, but they could do, again, as a wraparound. The student, it could be worked out, the students could stay for an additional half hour, or if they're staying for the entire day and having daycare in the other half, then that could be worked into that. But again, those are the discussions that need to take place so we can find out what are the possibilities, and then those preschool centers would have to decide what's acceptable to them. Again, talking about licensing, and these are things that some of you probably know more than I do about. But there are DPR clock hours that have to be met, and in Burlington, whenever the students attend the regular school district day, then the 4K kids do also. Has to be a DPI certified teacher that has 4K licensing, and have to comply with any other contractual stipulations as outlined in the contracts. That's a contract between the district and the community center. Responsibilities of the community center then, they would be compensated based on a per pupil amount. The per pupil amount would be based on what other school districts in the area are paying their contracted centers. And by the way, this is just, again, what Burlington's doing, okay? If you look at this online and share this with somebody, this is not from the Waterford Graded School District right now. They are some of the members did follow the Burlington area thing. I saw them at the Burlington meeting, so I know they know a lot of this, but this is Matt and Tom sharing this information to get the conversation started. So reimbursement is tied to enrollment, not attendance. So if people don't show up, they don't get less pay. Students are counted for reimbursement on the 2 reporting count dates, just like they are. It's the 3rd Friday in September, 2nd Friday in January. And reimbursements are done on a timely basis as agreed upon. So here are some logistics and to answer some of the questions that you have. So participation in 4K is optional. You do not have to enroll your child in 4K. It does not fall under compulsory attendance regulations. So in Burlington they said, look, if you're going to enroll, we want you to take it serious. We're going to encourage attendance and good habits, because obviously in the following year where it is compulsory, then we want to make sure that we follow that and do the same thing. 4K programming would be available to all eligible students, and centers would comply with non-discrimination policies. Students would include those children who are 4 years old on or before September 1st. No tuition would be charged to families for the period of time that 4K is in operation, but of course, if there's going to be some additional services, then that would be worked out just how it is now with that preschool center. The district, doesn't have anything to do with that. I don't know if they would have some recommendation plans, or I really think that needs to be driven by the preschool centers. And that's another thing is, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you have ideas, coming back to this later on, but Monday in just a couple days is our school board meeting. And I know there will probably be some discussion or comments about this, but that is your one opportunity per month to address the school board. I do videotape that, and I videotape people that come and talk, so keep that in mind. But that's your opportunity to share what your concerns are, to ask questions. They're not going to respond to you right away, but they're going to take note of that. They're going to work hopefully on getting those questions for you. Again, this is my words. Graded would make every attempt to accommodate requests for particular community centers. However, the district could not guarantee this due to space availability and programming needs. So, just like if you want to have a certain teacher, I guess I've heard you can make requests, but usually they don't say yes or no. It just depends on how things work out. Here are some more logistics. 437 hours of direct instruction and 87.5 hours of parent outreach. My apologies, I don't even know what parent outreach is. Can somebody help me, please? Because I wanted to look that up before.
It's, where I was involved for over 30 years, and they had early childhood, we did it 4 days a week. And the 5th day was home visits, bringing the parents in. My parents came in with their child so they could see what we were doing and how we were doing it. So it works fabulously if you're doing it right, because then you're just, the kids come home and you say, what'd you do today? And a 4-year-old says nothing, So that gave the parents the opportunity. And then they always did, that outreach would count as a field trip to the pumpkin farm in the fall. And they would do activities, as a group with the children and their parents before like a holiday.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Other schools have also used like reading nights or those kind of nights for exams or like reading night or things like that, just get the connection.
Okay, very good, thank you. Same calendar. I guess most models are 5 days of instruction for approximately 8 hours. And then, again, there's all kinds of flexibility and there's all kinds of ways to do this, but both morning start times and afternoon dismissal times could coincide with the elementary schools. So basically the bus, if you're going to Woodfield or you're going to this preschool center, the bus picks you up, drops you off there on its route to the other elementaries or wherever it's going, or maybe a whole additional bus is needed. And then at the end of the day, the bus picks a student up if they are leaving the preschool site and takes them home, or brings them to the daycare center where they're going to go for the rest of the day if parents want the student all day at care or preschool. So there's infinite number of ways this can be done. And this was, some people had questions about this locally, but I didn't hear any discussion about this. I was really surprised at the Burlington meetings, but your 4-year-old would get on the bus with the kindergartners and all the way up through 6th grade, if that's who's on your bus. And locally, I did hear some people that really a 4-year-old would get on the bus. Burlington, nobody was concerned about, and I don't really know how I feel about that, but that is, it would add additional costs. Certainly any additional cost could be covered by the surplus revenue. Okay, let's have no doubt about that. But other districts in Burlington are doing it where the 4-year-old rides the same bus. They do have to have additional busing though for the middle of the day, right? Because some of those students are going to go home, some are going to go to a daycare facility, or some need to be dropped off in the middle of the day. And then, of course, in the afternoon, they take the bus home. Went over some of this. There is no ratio, so just like right now, there's no ratio in 6th grade or 2nd grade. The district has policy on that, by the way, but the policy is not very strong. They have the ability to really put as many kids as they want in a classroom. And again, that would be something that we need to hear from the experts on that. What really, whether it's just one teacher, how many 4-year-olds, I can't handle, 2 at home sometimes it feels like. So how many can you handle and meet the needs of the students? If you have an aide in the room, is that required? Or how many students can you have then? So these are all things that we need to hear from people that are experts on this, and you need to advise the school district. The school district does employ some people that, of course, have a background in this. The assistant curriculum, what's the title, Dawn? Of curriculum. She has mentioned at meetings that her previous district had a 4K program, I believe, so I think she's somebody with some background. So then the curriculum, and again, I don't know much about this, and I had a wonderful little chat with Barb the other day, and what are going to be the actual requirements for the curriculum? And one of the concerns I think is very valid is the curriculum going to address those social needs, those growth needs that the students need outside of reading and writing and math and art? I mean, that's the type of thing we need input on from you in the community that have a lot of experience on this, because I don't know anything about that, and trust me, Dan Jensen doesn't know anything about that, and we need to hear from a lot of people. In Burlington, though, this is what they're doing. 30% of the curriculum, they said would. I changed it to could. Focus on reading and language. 70% would be on those other disciplines. And then all necessary training and professional development in order to implement the curriculum would be provided by the district. So if you're a preschool center and you are offering preschool to 4-year-olds, your employees, your DPI certified 4K teachers are going to get this curriculum and training and the professional development from the school district. Certain students with special needs, just like it is done right now, K through 12, K through 8, they're going to be tested and monitored. They're going to have an IEP. It's going to be outlined. All of that has to be, of course, abided by. And the district is responsible for providing the necessary staff and resources to meet the programming needs of the students. So when we talk about, does that preschool center have to employ a special education teacher? No, that's going to all be provided by the school district. And again, how that exactly works and how often they spend time on site, I don't know. So I think that, let me just see. So let me just go to questions, and then I want to wrap this up because I did kind of identify who on the current school board has been supportive of 4K and who has not. I realize not everybody here supports 4K, or at least district supports 4K, but let's go ahead and have some questions. Yes, sir.